Starfighters, a quick and easy set of wargaming rules for battles in space. This is mostly used for small ship-to-ship actions. Your X-Wings versus your TIE Fighters, your Vipers versus your whatever the Cylons drove. It does have optional rules, couple of additional pages for mass battles, so you can have carriers, cruisers, destroyers, and fighters on the table at the same time. Wouldn't be the joy of wargaming if we didn't take a rule set and do something a little weird with it. I'm going to use these rules for vehicular mayhem. Now, I'm going to play the rules as written. I'm just going to use some different terms to make it more applicable to ground-based combat. The game uses the standard... you could probably even reskin this for World War II or World War I dogfighting, Canvas Eagles style. But because it's a space game, that third dimension has been squashed down. It's just a two-dimensional game. That's not really true for dogfights in atmospheric conditions where altitude plays a huge role in who's got the drop, literally, on whom. So you're going to have to squint your eyes a little bit, and you're going to have to allow for the fact that you're losing out on that extra dimension of combat for dogfighting in an atmospheric condition. However, that being the case, if you can get past it, then this would be a great set of rules for those kinds of combat as well. As you can see from the cover, it comes to us from Wiley Games. It is not quite a straight rip of Fistful of Lead. It uses the same core rules as Fistful of Lead or Galactic Heroes. There's a good pairing. Look at the art design on this. I love it so much. It's fun. Reminds me of the opening credits for The Incredibles. Oh, that 90s super spy. And I can't. Anyway, so I'm not going to go into great detail on how the core engine for Fistful of Lead works. We've done a number of videos on the channel. We've already covered that. Instead, what I want to do is talk about how Starfighters differs, how the core rules have been expanded and given a little bit of boost so that they apply to Starfighters. Of course, we'll go over it just real briefly. It is a D10 system when you are engaged in melee, which is essentially reskinned as a dogfight. You will roll and you will compare. Each side rolls, adds whatever modifiers. Whoever gets the higher roll wins. If you're shooting at an opponent, you roll a D10. If they are in close range, you hit on 5s. If they're long range, you hit on 8s. Subject, of course, to a wide range of modifiers. We'll talk about those more in a little bit. It does use the same card-driven activation system. Each player is dealt one card for every ship in his fleet or his squadron, if you're just playing the dogfighting rules. And these cards will not only determine when you go, okay, 6, you're going to have to wait until 6s are called. All the kings take their action, then the queens, then the jacks. Aces are wild. So you say, who wants to play a king? And you can play an ace if you want, as a king. Different cards have different special abilities. There's a queen that will heal you or remove your shock if you are playing this jack. In fact, maybe I should just double check this before I give you bad information. Sometimes they give us, so the one-eyed jacks give you +1 to shoot. Well, this is a one-eyed jack. See, look, he's only got he's got 2 eyes. It's just one of them is a robot eye. The other jacks give you +1 to dog fighting, which is this +1 to close combat. Be patient, no spoilers. We're getting to dog fighting in a little bit. 6 cards will allow you. So this here, it says reload, right? Well, in this game, reload still works, but we justify it differently. You got to change your mindset. And then, of course, if you can wait until the 2s are called, if you're dropping a deuce, you get to roll dices, and you pick the one that is best. You have advantage. And of course, as I said, aces are wild. Fairly standard stuff. Now, how does it differ? Well, the first thing is we have to invite our new friend. He crashes every space combat party that we have. Mr. Momentum, first name Mo. You got momentum. So I'm going to use my car, my little fire car. I built this for Gaslands, but I think it'll work great for this. Let's talk movement first. Normally in Fistful of Lead, you get 2 actions, and such is the case here. But in this case, one of those actions has to be movement. You move 8 inches. unless you have an ability that makes you like slow and clunky, relatable, or spry and zoomy, which case you might be moving a little bit faster or slower. Regardless, on an action you move your speed, and you have to move forward 2 inches, at least 2 inches, before you can turn. You make a turn of 45 degrees, and then you move up to the rest of your movement. You could move the whole way and then make a 45-degree turn. You can use your second action to do that again, but you have to move at least 2 inches between 45-degree turns. You can turn up to 90 degrees, and you can move up to twice your speed. You can also use both of your actions. Now, if you move once, you can still shoot, you can still dogfight, you can make like recovery rolls, you can take other actions. If you want to use both actions on movement, you can just turn 90 degrees, but then anybody shooting at you is going to have a bonus because you're effectively motionless. In fact, you can just stay where you're at and not move at all. That's viable as well. You can also make your move. See, there's our turn, and we moved, and I'm going to use my second action to take evasive action. I'm going to jink, I'm going to jive, I'm going to do a barrel roll, and now anybody shooting at me for the rest of the turn is going to have a minus to hit me because I'm getting all dodgy on you. So pretty clever. Gives you some options, gives you some things you can do, and it's just enough of a respectful nod to momentum and the needs of having to keep moving quickly without bogging the game down in a whole lot of Traveler style. Well, what's the gravity? What's your thrust? What was your thrust last turn? Which I love. It's just not that kind of game. Next up, what should we talk about? Well, let's just take it in the same order look, Jay Wiley that wrote this, he's been writing these game rules longer than I've had a channel. He knows what he's doing. So the order that he presents these in, that's the order that I'm going to present it in. So it becomes a little bit of a flip through, but humor me if you would. So on this flip through, the next thing we should probably talk about is shooting. As I said, works just the same, but I do want to talk a little bit about the weapons that you have at your disposal. So let me zoom in here, because these are not your standard weapons. Lasers have a range of 12 inches. Beyond that, you're at a minus to hit. Maximum range 36. You roll 1d10 for every time you shoot. But you can have a burst laser that gives you 1d10. Oh, heavy lasers, you roll 3d10, but you have to cool down after every shot. Means that you can only fire those every other turn. We do have missiles / torpedoes. These are markers that you will fire at a ship, and they will chase them turn after turn. They are persistence predators. And you have a couple of different kinds. Your standard concussion torpedo, you roll 2d10, and they have a 5-inch burst template. So when they hit, you have limited though. And limited ammo means that, where does it say? Got it. Limited ammo means you only get one of them. You do have to worry about facing. You have now the rules themselves are fairly robust. Look, they expect you to have either a round or a square base. You can use your X-Wing playing pieces for this. Most of your fire, your shooty bits are pointed out of the front. You can buy a turret, gives you 360, but that means that you're going to have to pay out the nose for that. I don't have square. I have rectangular bases. That's fine. Just draw a line from corner to corner, and that means that my cars here are going to have a much narrower window for their front fire arc. It's okay. It changes the nature of the game. It sticks to the rules, and it makes the car combat feel a little bit different from the space combat, which is fine. Different is good. You can shoot these missiles. It's -2 to hit them, but because you have a couple of turns, you can have a buddy knock that missile out of the sky, which is good, because most of these things, like 2d10 is pretty good. They do have these, some of these are fun. Drill missiles are full of nanobots. Each turn they bore into a target. At the end of each turn, roll in the damage chart. If a 1 to 3 is rolled, the driller stops functioning. So let's talk about damage. It works much the same way as it does in the core Fistfull of Lead. When you shoot at someone, there's a couple of different rules we need to talk about at the same time. Shields, which in my case we'll call armor. Let me back up. It's roll to hit, and then you roll for damage, and then you roll for shields. Heavy shields reduce the step damage by 1 on a result of a 6 or better on a d10. Light shields, you need to roll an 8 or better to make that damage save. So if you're out of action and you've got heavy shields and you roll a 6, you only take a damage point. We'll talk a little bit more about what the effects of damage are, and of course, shock works much the same. But first, we need to talk about dogfighting. This is the melee portion of the fight, and what happens here is you get your two ships. Here's ship 1, and here's ship 2, and they end their turn very close to each other. Now you're going to roll that contested D10 with some modifiers to it. If my Starfighter has caught up to you from behind, I'm going to be at +2. I'm chasing you. If I've got a friend nearby, I get an extra +1. I think there's some others with, like if your pilot has really good skills, and as usual, you can buy veterans that use a D12 instead of a D10, which will improve your odds. But be that as it may, this is a case where, as with the core rules, you have to compare the results. So if you get a 9 versus a 4, a difference of 5 is going to lead to, see, in this case, a 5, add +2 to the damage roll. So you make that damage roll, you're adding 2, and suddenly you're going to take a damage point on a 4 up instead of a 6 up. Now, it gets a little bit more complicated than that, because what you've done here and what Jay has done for us is he has presented us with a case of, is we're zooming around, la-da-da, we're zooming around doing our little shooty bits, and then when we get into a dogfight, the resolution of the game changes, and we've got this little abstract bubble in which these two ships are really going at it. They're snarling and falling all over each other like rabid dogs. And then what happens at the end of it gets interesting, because if both ships are still alive at the end, the winner, and we'll make our cool car the winner, he gets to separate the ships by 2 inches and point them in whatever direction he wants. Oh, look, now I'm behind you, and if I get to go first next time, you can bet your sweet bippy we're going to be dogfighting again. If we tie, we get a fun little mini game here, because if it's a tie, we separate by 2 inches facing away from each other, but the attacker, so remember he was chasing this guy, so we separate by 2 inches facing away from each other. But now the attacker gets to position his ship. Let me look at this. If the score is a tie, separate by 2 inches facing away, first the attacker positions his ship, followed by the defender, which I take to mean that the attacker gets to decide. So this is a little easier. The attacker says, you know what, separate by 2 inches, I want to be facing you still. Now this guy can pick what direction he's moving. So what this does is, when you have this swirling melee, it gives you free 360 turns at the end of the melee if you survive, which is, no guarantees. So I wouldn't recommend you do that. So we talk about shock. Shock applies the same way it does in the core rules. You get a -1 to your shooting skill, your dogfighting skill. Basically, anytime the pilot tries to do something, because he's so rattled, you're at -1 on the die roll. Damage starts knocking systems off of your ship. We'll take it when we look at what the ship roster looks like. We'll talk exactly about how that works. But for now, I should point out, anytime you roll a 1, now that we've gone through all that, anytime you roll a 1, something bad happens. And this is where overheating comes into play. If I'm shooting at you and I roll a 1, oh boy, I overheated my guns. I got a little trigger happy, and now I have to do a reload. I have to spend an action. I have to spend a turn not shooting, which opens the door for you to shoot back at me. Or I have to hope that I get dealt that big fat 6. The reloads give you a free cooldown period. In dogfighting, you have screwed up royally. Not only did you lose the fight, but your opponent rolls a D10, and the number 9 and the direction of, and for my D10s, it's always going to be the top. See the little triangle? That's the arrow. So in this case, I would have to put this fighter 9 inches away from the die. Not only that, but I believe, oh look, if you win with an 8, you still apply all the effects of the damage. So you got spooked, you ran off, and with a difference of 7, you're going to be sucking down a +3 on that damage roll. And now I think is a good time to talk about how the ship's construction works. Let me grab put that nice, bright and colorful. Let me grab the rosters that I got over here, and I got a nice I got a nice big fat one right here to show you what they look like, right? So the shoot and the fight, dog fight, these are going to be D10s for the most part. We can record shock and damage here, and probably ship construction is the better way to go. In the standard game, you get 30 points, and light fighters cost, well, all right, so this, you spend 1 point per slot, and then when you start buying power-ups for your pilots, you're going to have to spend some points on that too. So whoops, this is wrong. Pilots get 3 attributes for your wing leader, and then 2 for your sergeant, and 1 for everybody else. So your standard light fighter is going to have 3 damage points. It'll cost 3 points. You can buy 1 more for another point, and it's got a total of 7 slots. So if you upgrade your light fighter to have 4 hit points, call it hull points, if you will, that's what they usually do, you're going to be down to just 3 slots for equipment. And as you can see, if you buy heavy lasers on your light aircraft, you're done. So you don't have any room for shields. With 30 points per team, you can get 4 light fighters. You could get 3 medium fighters or 2 heavy fighters. And that's just kind of a baseline. I'll probably start off a little bit smaller than that to get comfortable with the rules. I tend to forget the ones. But there are other systems you can buy. Again, they take up 1 slot. So remember, our light fighters, they have 3 slots. So we could take armored. You get a +1 to any rolls for shields. When you make your damage saves, +1. You can get dogfighter. Gives you a +1 to dogfighting rolls. If it's fast, you get a free 4-inch move per activation to 1 action. So it's only 4 extra inches per turn, not 8. You don't get to get 4 per action. Free 45-degree turn and action. Now again, the way I'm reading this, you have to move 2 inches between 45-degree turns. In other words, just this ship here is nimble, so he has to move at least 2 inches, turn 45, still have to move at least 2 inches and turn 90. But now, in just 1 action, I've done the 90-degree turn, where a ship without that upgrade has to stay stationary. I'm not eating that +2 to hit me because I haven't really moved this turn. Kind of. So this is where we talk about what hit points mean. In addition to your hull points, you've got light fighters have a maximum of 4 points. So if I get hit for 1 point of damage, I'm down to 3. But if I get hit for 2 points of damage, rather than being half dead, I can cross off one of those systems and still have 3 hull points, which will keep me in the battle a little bit longer. Very interesting way. Who gets to pick that? I think the person that gets shot gets to choose. A starfighter lose 1 inch less per damage point each move action down to a minimum of 2. So that's important too. If I've got those 4 damage points, remember every turn I move 8? Oh, now I only move 7. Oh, I took another one, now I only move 6. Oh, so you're slowing down as your impulse drives take a beating. Let's see. Damage doesn't mean instead of taking damage, owner's choice. There it is. Those are the 2 words I was looking for. When your ship gets hit, you get to choose. There may be a trait that gives you a sniper ability that you get to pick, but I'm not going to look it up right now. So that's the basics of the game. We could talk a little bit about recovery. Of course, the Queen of Hearts will heal you of 1 damage, and that's there. You also have the ability to buy repair bots. At the very end of the turn, your repair bot makes a task check and may be able to get one of your systems back in line. Shock, we could talk about recovery. You make a straight ahead move. So remember, shock is pretty bad. It's a -1 to all of your actions. So if you want to get rid of your shock, you make a move straight ahead. You roll a d10 for each shock marker and a 6 up. This is your second action. For every 6 up you get, so I got 2 shock markers, I rolled 2 dice, I got a 6 and a 1. This shock marker goes bye-bye, and I'm down to just a -1, and that maybe puts me back in the fight. If you have more shock than hits, my ship is down to just 2 hull points, and I've taken 3 shock. You pull the ship off the table. This is an interesting little mechanic. In this case, he breaks off. I'm out of here. I don't want to die. In space, no one can hear me vaporized. So you take them to a starting table edge before the cards are dealt. You roll a die based on the quality, right? Generally a D10. And then on an 8 up, they can get a card and come back in the table. On a 1 through 7, they're out of the fight for good. So building up too much shock is going to put you out of the fight as well. As I said, there is a cleanup phase, and this is where you get all the cards together. You move terrain, so of course asteroids are going to move, and then your repair bots can try to make a repair. Let's see, the roll a die based on the pilot's level. If the pilot passes a hard task, you can repair 1 damage point or system. There you go. If the roll fails, that system is out of the game for good. So you got to be judicious about how you do this as well. I think that's about it. We talked a little bit about building. You can buy negative traits. You can build a ship that is fragile, so it has 1 less damage point than normal, and that lets you buy another system. So maybe my light fighter, I want it to be nimble, fast, dogfighter, and I want it to have shields. Oh, that's 4. I don't have enough slots for that. Okay, no problem. I'll just give it 2 damage points, because now I buy back one of those. And then, of course, your pilots are going to have abilities like ignoring shock penalties when shooting. Once per turn, you may re-roll a shoot roll. That's your sniper. What else we got? Ignore 1 pilot shock result for each attack against you. Nerves of Steel. We've got Cool-Headed, +1 to recovery checks. You can buy a co-pilot, so you can fire 2 weapon systems in 1 action once per turn. So there's how you get different. You got a Wingman, apply a damage result to any friendly model. That's very similar to Bodyguard in vanilla Fistful of Lead. And then I think we should probably talk about the big ships, huge ships. I haven't gone through this in a whole lot of detail yet, but basically they're less maneuverable. And look at that, 20 slots. Capital ships are reserved for the smaller scale fleet battles found later. The corvettes and cruisers can be integrated into your Fistful of Lead. Ignore 2 overheated results per turn. I mean, these are big boys, man. You might want to do a single capital ship against like a whole flight, like 2 squadrons of fighters. After the battle, we do have a simple campaign system. Whether or not your pilot survives, everybody that didn't make it out of the fight. Here's some Hydra models. Those look pretty good. Man's got a heck of a collection. From the author's collection, man, he's just got all kinds of good stuff. Space station built by Steve Wilkie with FFG ships. I think that's Fantasy Flight Games. Steve Wilkie puts a little crater base together. That's looking pretty good. Right, so, same kind of recovery rolls. Did we survive? On a 10 up, you're completely doomed. And on a 1 through 5, just wing me, come right back in. So here's your fire arcs for the bigger ships, much the same. There are rules for firing out of your back arc, as you might expect. In a game like this, you really want positioning to be a thing, so you really want to give a guy a strong advantage for getting right up the tailpipe and firing at his opponents. I think there's like a +1. Let me check here real quick. Target is evading, target is stationary. But it's not in shooting, it's in dogfighting. We talked about that. The game also includes a couple of scenarios, escort missions. We've been doing some of that on the land-based side. Rescue missions, line them up, shoot them at each other. And what else do we got in here? We've got headhunting. Enemy forces have decided the flight leader of the other side is too dangerous. 4 players, 2 players represent the team with 1 other leaders of the bounty. You try and knock out the leader. Attack run. That reminds me of that movie, Lord of the Rings. 1 side must destroy the enemy listening post attached to some asteroids. Attack on the shadow base, the last battle. I think this is 1 side starts at 1 short edge, the other on the opposite side. Asteroids can be placed. Instead of placing miniatures, players place bogey markers. I know my British listeners are giggling at that. There are some counters at the back of the book, or you can use other markers. Only the controlling players will know the identity of their ships until the enemy makes an active scan. Of course, how the ship maneuvers can be a dead giveaway. To scan an unknown ship, pilot must use an action, and the target must be in range. The ranges are the same as for shooting. 12 for short, needing a 5 up, 36 for long, needing an 8 up. Success means the target must replace the bogey with a marker. So a little bit of fog of war. I like that. A fighter cannot be targeted until it's been identified. At the end of a turn where 1 side loses half its fighters, it has lost. And then a very much appreciated parting shots. These are design notes, always wonderful. Now, as I said, I'm actually going to reskin the game to use my car combat miniatures. And to do that, I don't have to do anything. Now, I'm going to lose a few things. As a Starfighter game, Starfighters does not have rules for moving in reverse. Whoop. Yeah, there's no reversing in the Badlands. It's going to be in the desert, and so when you dogfight, we're going to call that, when you're the pursuing guy. Instead of dogfighting, we'll call them ram attacks, but they'll work the same way. And once again, change your perspective. Normally, as we're driving through the desert, la la la, and we're shooting at each other, it's fine. When we get into a ram attack, that's where things get really hazy and we get even more abstract. And yes, we may wind up with a situation where our cars now are pointed in opposite directions. I think you point them the opposite direction, and the guy that made the attack gets to pick his direction first, and then the guy that was defending gets to pick his direction, so he can put himself in a chase scenario. So it's not dogfighting; it's just a ram attack. It's fine. And again, if you have a guy in a car, he's going to be focused out the front windshield. My narrow firing arcs are going to play into the concept of car combat. And, otherwise, I'm not going to worry about, is that turn too tight? It's really, you're going to have to unclench, and you're going to have to understand that we're just doing this rule set with a different set of markers. It's robust enough to handle that. And I think it will work out just fine. So tune in next week when we actually get this game on the table, start dealing out some Galactic Heroes cards, and have a little bit of dogfighting fun in the desert. Instead of asteroids, we use rocks. Maybe we got to have some dangerous terrain. You got to have some stuff to avoid. Maybe we have a little bit of quicksand. We call that dangerous terrain. You can drive through it, but you have to make a damage check. Check on a 6-up. You take damage or shock, right? Maybe you automatically have to roll on the damage chart with, call it subtract your pilot skill. So on a 1, you don't take anything, but on a 1 through 5, you take a shock. And yeah, on a 9-up, you're out of action. You probably don't want to go driving through quicksand unless you don't have any options. And again, I think movement, I think it all works just fine. The only real difference is there's no reverse. Tune in next week. We're going to have a good time. Till then, I'm praying for you.